Foreplay, presented by Barstool Sports. We could never just start a show normally, huh? We can't. We just got people are giggling, people are making noises.
I got excited for that one. T Daddy was giving kind of a fake clap to get us started. I was excited for it.
Frankie took the longest drink of water I've ever seen, and then gave one of the
like the Coca-Cola commercial.
Knowing that my hands were in the air, getting ready to clap, and he wanted to see how long I'd hold my hands up.
I think I have some prosciutto in my teeth.
Frankie just ate a lot of prosciutto.
Calabria's of New Jersey came in. We've done a review for them, and they got an amazing score from Dave Portman. I think it was in the 9s. They do like the crunchy thin pizza in Jersey. So they brought in what looked to be like $5,000 worth of food. I mean, trays upon trays of penne pomodoro, rigatoni alla vodka, and then all of a sudden, so I'm making my way down this buffet line, and then I see the glistening tray of a mountain of prosciutto just waiting for me. 3 trays of prosciutto. I mean, the most prosciutto I've ever seen in my entire life. To the point where, you know, when you have the whole company-wide thing where like everyone's gonna have a little piece, you don't want to Milton anyone from Office Space where like, you know, pass it down so that everyone gets one. So I wanted to only take one piece of prosciutto. I couldn't just take one piece of prosciutto, so I ended up throwing a ball of prosciutto on my plate. I put a roll on top of that, and then I walked away and came back. I said, "Oh, is there some prosciutto over here?" And then I threw it on top of the roll, so it looked like I only took one. I was hiding prosciutto underneath the roll. I was hiding the prosciutto under the roll.
If prosciutto didn't exist, how much healthier do you think you would be? If someone had just never come up with it,
dude, are you kidding me? Oh, it's my kryptonite, man. Salty meats, salty Italian meats.
So we got a fun show today. We got a lot to get to. There's been Phil Mickelson and Justin Thomas have been weighing in on the USGA and RNA's decision to adopt or to implement a new local rule that it does sound like the PGA Tour will adopt starting in 2022. That is going to lead us down a deep historical dive into the rules of golf that is quite intriguing and delivers some very interesting rules over the last 300, 400, 500 years. We've got some Tiger Woods updates. We got some from the gallery stuff to get to that I'm sure we won't get to. First, we're going to begin with Owens Mixers. As you know, Owens is they were some of our best friends at this point. They've been supporting us for a few years now, to the point where they said, hey, we know you love transfusions. Why don't we work together? Why don't we collaborate? Why don't we whip up our own transfusion mix and put the Barstool logo on it and do some taste testing and create something that is quite delicious that you pour in with your favorite vodka and you have an awesome cocktail. We said, yep, we're definitely going to do that. And now we have this beautiful can that's sitting right in front of you guys that I'm sort of shoving in the YouTube viewers' faces right now that you should be shoving down your throat anytime you're on a golf course. Maybe you're watching a little bit of football. Maybe you're watching email leaks break day after day, minute after minute, and you're fascinated by that. And you say, you know what, I just want to sit back, put my feet up on the table, cross my legs, enjoy a cocktail, and watch all this bullshit unfold. You should do that with a Owens mixer that you pour in with your favorite liquor of choice. Correct?
It's a fantastic drink. No two ways about it.
No two ways.
Couldn't agree more.
You know, they've dominated the
Amazon
game.
Amazon, you get next day shipping. GoPuff, you get same day shipping. You can check out Publix, Kroger, Total Wine, CVS, Ralph's, Winn-Dixie, all these other locations that have Owens mixers. Is that Southern? That's got to be Southern, right?
I would imagine so. Quick shout out to William Shatner. He went up.
Just came back from space, right?
Yeah, you mentioned Amazon, and he went up in Bezos' rocket in space today, so that jogged my memory.
Couldn't believe when I saw that name. I had to Google if that was like a young version of William Shatner, and it was just Shatner. I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, Rhea was watching it at her desk. She was glued to her laptop watching it, and she said, William Shatner's 90 years old. And I said, that sounds right, because he has just been around forever. So shout out to that guy.
Did he survive?
Yeah, he did
He's
survive.
not actually 90.
I believe he is.
90?
I didn't look. I'll be honest.
He's 90.
Dude, when I thought it was like
1931. Wow.
I thought it was one of those like Will Smith in baseball things where you're like, oh yeah, that's just somebody else, like who's named Will Smith. That's really cool. And it was actually William Shatner. I was just like, oh man, he's doing the damn thing. He went to space. So you're right. Shout out to him.
He looks unbelievable.
He
looks 90?
Yeah.
He just went to space. He's got that space glow.
He looks great.
Don't you have to be a certain level of healthy to attend space?
Space? Yeah, I think so. But if you're William Shatner, like obviously an iconic Star Trek character, and then he's always apparently dreamed of going to space, so they probably fudged the physical.
Bro, I'm shocked he didn't just open up the door and just drift. You know, like that was his ending. Like he finally got up there.
How was that better? How was that better than coming back to Earth than just killing yourself and drifting?
Because
I know what Frankie's saying. You know you're close. The finish line's right in front of you. Like,
He's
you might
90
as well
years
just
old.
say,
It's
see you
like,
later.
why do we?
Might have another good 10 years.
Unlikely. Why do we sprinkle ashes into the ocean? Like, because it's a nice thing. He figures, I'm 90. No. I'm 90. I'm knocking on the door. It's the final curtain, as Sinatra said.
Knocking on
And
heaven's door.
this is going to be probably his only opportunity to be in space. He's like, I might as well be one with space.
Bro, imagine our lives if we knew William Shatner was forever floating through space. Like that's just something Earth
that'd
knew
be funny.
all time.
But Trent comparing to someone spreading their ashes after they're dead and cremated to actually just jumping out the door and killing oneself and floating around the world are two drastically
I don't look at that
things.
as like a killing himself thing. I think it's just he's just ending it in a great way, right? It's like his final it's his final chapter. He just opens the door and floats.
The thing is, the gap isn't as big as you're making it seem, Low Lurch. You know what I mean? Where like
What?
Right.
The gap isn't as big as you're making it seem. Like if we did it, I'm in my early 30s, people would be like, that's crazy. But he's 90. I don't
Right,
want
but
to
that's a long way from ashes. I mean,
not really when you're 90.
He's 90.
Bro.
How's that a long way from ashes?
If
He's
you wanna
also
talk-
basically is ashes. He's 90. Like
you wanna talk about averages,
Have you
he's-
seen an old person? They're basically ashes.
Imagine him
disrespect.
like sticking his fingers up and saying, "Beam me up, Scotty," as he falls back into the dark void of space.
Oh man,
All
that'd be
time.
great.
All-time move.
No disrespect to old people, by the way. I love old people, but he's right there. 90 is pretty old.
We're almost right there.
he looks
Old
good
people-
for 90, though. I don't think we're giving enough credit for how good he looks.
Good people die every day. Good looking people die every day.
That's true.
James D.
There's no doubt about that. I'm just saying, voluntarily jumping out into space, there is something poetic about that in some weird way. But at the same time, you're just saying, you know what? I'm not going back down to Earth. I'm done. I'm dead here right now.
Bro,
and so I'd rather personally live out the rest of my days, maybe be cremated, and then spread my ashes in space.
If I'm William Shatner, I'm asking to have a probe put on my back where it's going to light up, and you just send me into orbit so that people around the world can look up. Because is that a star? Is that a planet? No, that's fucking William Shatner.
Just the constantly shooting William Shatner star that
Floating
just never
around.
Is that
in space.
Orion's belt? No, that's William Shatner.
Dude, what a fucking legacy, man.
Boy,
I think we're right.
Do you think anyone will ever do
what
that?
do you mean you're right?
Like,
Hold
you
on,
think, like,
right about
Elon-
what?
I bet I shouldn't have said right. I bet it crossed William Shatner's mind.
Okay. Right felt weird. I didn't understand right. I think
Yeah, it didn't really fit with the conversation that we were having, but I think it crossed his mind.
I don't even like a door. I don't think there's a door, and if there was, 90-year-old William Shatner can't open that door. Imagine he gets up and then he's trying to be like he's trying to do his poetic thing, and then he can't open the door, and everyone's like, "Will, just like sit down, dude. Like we still got fucking another couple hours here." And then it's weird because he doesn't have any strength. He's up in space, so maybe it just wasn't feasible for him, but he wanted to do it.
He had a quote about going up into space that was very emotional and very beautiful, and I just cannot find it right now. But it seems like a guy who is just
He should
so
have jumped, dude.
just so in love with space that it certainly crossed his mind. Why can I not find it? I saw it all day this morning, and now I can't find it. I'm sorry. This is just...
I see one. I hope I never recover. Is that from going to space? That is.
Sounds like
That's
a guy that
a little.
Sounds
That
a
actually.
lot like a guy that meant to jump and he just couldn't figure
I
out how to get
agree
through
with
the
you.
door.
I almost lose all credibility with the line. Like
Are you
that.
saying I'm going to see the vastness of space and the extraordinary miracle of our Earth and how fragile it is compared to the forces at work in the universe?
Nope, that's not it, unfortunately.
No.
That's a good one, though, Jake. That's a good one. Who said that?
William Shatner.
Oh, I mean, he's just full of quotes, full of poetic quotes. This is a guy. Every single quote we keep reading from this guy sounds like Frankie was right. He was ready. I think he might have emotionally prepared for this to be the end. And when he came back, he's actually like, "Fuck, I'm still here." My ship landed.
Yeah, I mean, I almost
Research
tend to
right
agree with you. Based on reading a few of these quotes, he maybe should have stayed up there. I mean, got a spacesuit, lived out the rest of his days. I don't know, a couple packaged meals in a spacesuit. Maybe he's got another week and he just floats around for a week.
You think there's a single 90-plus-year-old listening to this podcast right now?
No.
No, not one.
All right, here's this quote. Sorry, I don't know what you
I
guys
mean,
are
Riggs,
talking
do you
about.
think? I mean, no way.
Here's what he said. He said,
I don't, but then, I mean, it's numerically, it feels probable, but rationally it feels unlikely. Let's hear the quote.
William Shatner, after he went up into space today, said, I do not know what I may appear to the world, but to myself I seem to have been only like a boy playing on the seashore, diverting myself and then finding a smoother pebble or a prettier shell than ordinary, whilst the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me. That's a guy who should have died in space.
I don't know.
He's
anything
so
you just
checked
said.
out, it's crazy.
He might
It's
go
crazy.
back. He might go back for a final trip. If he's going back up, I think everybody knows that that's his final trip.
He's not coming back.
No, if he goes, yeah, I
Again.
agree with you.
Shout out to William Shatner.
Mm-hmm.
Great day for him.
Shout out to William Shatner. I guess Tiger Woods.
Travel.
From William Shatner to Tiger Woods.
Well, before we get into Tiger Woods, I want to apologize to my doctor. I've talked about him, Dr. Brown, the surgeon. I've fucked up the surgery. It's only been 16 days, I believe it's been, maybe 15 days since my last surgery. Oh, no. Today's Wednesday. So it's been 14 days since my surgery.
You're so stupid.
And it's back. You know, the popping in the elbow. I've had so many people in my DM to have had this ulnar transposition surgery. And you're all listening to this. I want to apologize to you as well. You've tried to tell me to take the recovery seriously. You tried to tell me to do this, do that. It seems as though the popping of the nerve is back. I had the sensation in my elbow where I had to pop it. It's probably because I was way too willy-nilly with playing the drums, only 12 days post-surgery, driving Aunt Laura off the road in go-karts. I mean, I was the problem is it felt good. And I just did stuff. And that's just not how you recover.
Can't feel too good after, what'd you say, 14 days? You went for
Bro,
4
it felt
hours
good,
on the
man.
drums?
It felt good.
Right,
Like I was never in a point where I was like, oh my God, my arm is fucking bleeding and pain and I can't do it. Like,
think in your head that the doctor is just wrong?
no, I didn't. I just thought because he said like I'll be able to drum, I was like, well, why can't I just drum a little bit today? And I still don't know, and I want to say that I haven't been to him for an extra checkup. I just know what I'm feeling in my elbow today, Wednesday, October 13th, is not correct. Like, it's not what I felt for the first 12 days. I felt stability the first 12 days. I felt compactness in my elbow. Now I'm feeling every time I grab this water bottle right now, it just feels loose and it's popping. So the nerve
What was recommended? What was rest time recommended by doctor?
Oh, months. I mean, months.
Well,
Yeah, months.
And I would say,
Months.
I mean, what activity could you do that is more elbow intensive than the drumming that I witnessed
Good
you
question.
doing last night?
really good question.
I don't know.
I don't
And
know
you
if there's anything else in the world.
And you saying it feels good now, so why would I have to wait the 2 weeks when he said that I could drum? That's just ignoring that time exists.
Correct. Healing.
And that healing is a thing, and that
Right.
it takes time.
Right.
Yeah. No, you're an idiot.
No, I don't want to say this lightly, but I like my brain felt like mellow last night. Like I slipped into a dark place last night, like sitting there being like, I can't believe my fucking elbow is probably going to need surgery again. You know what I mean?
You were like that at the office. You were just sitting there like staring off into space.
Yeah, man, I was like pretty out of it yesterday, just thinking like, what am I doing out here, you know? But then I also think like I want to play in these concerts, bro. We're going to like multiple cities. It's going to be awesome. We're going to like a place. I don't even know if we've announced it yet. So
I don't think they have.
Yeah, but
So-
your arm won't work. So at a certain
I
level,
know, but it's like at
you're
some
not gonna
point I
play.
give everything to this fucking company, and if I have to give my
But-
arm, I give my arm.
No, but you didn't have to practice.
We kind of did. Like we're learning new songs because we're going to specific cities. I had to play.
You
like,
can
Do you
still play.
think anyone's gonna care if you go up there and you didn't quite have practiced enough? You
No,
guys
I
are-
care though. Like
mean-
I care. I care. We've got thousands of people coming to this thing. Like we can't just be fucking idiots about it. Like the reason why it works is because we practice and because we try and play well. Like or else like now all of a sudden you're saying like should we not like try anything or even practice about anything? Like that is the reason why people have come in the first place.
You had a surgical procedure to repair your arm, and that when you have that, you have to sacrifice things afterwards. It'd be like,
Can we see the arm
if a
right now?
quarterback
'Cause,
just
like,
had an ACL surgery, and then a week later is like, yeah, but I really want to play football. Like, I just really want to play football. It's awesome. That's like those
I know.
things. It just doesn't
I
work. When
also
you get
think
injured, you're injured.
his arm is still probably yellow from the pictures. Like if you look at it, you can't tell me that it's like, oh, this looks good. It's still bruised, cut up. And
No, I saw it yesterday. It looks like shit.
Bro, I have like the stuff off now, and like the skin hasn't even healed. Like the incision's still there. Like there's 2 pieces of skin being held together with fabric.
The decision to go play drums for 4 hours, sweat with that kind of limb in that coloration is beyond idiotic, but at the same time, I love it. I absolutely
Listen,
love
man, if I have to get the surgery, I gotta get the surgery again. I don't know what else to tell you guys. Like, my life sucks. Like right now, I'm in a bad spot, and you know, I'm not very happy. I'm pretty mellow about it. I feel round, if that makes sense. I know my face is round, but like my brain feels round, if that makes any sense. Like
no edges to it.
There's no like edge. Like I'm just kind of like floating through the day, being like, I can't believe I really fucked this up. You know, I just can't believe that it feels like this right now. Talking to you guys, I can't believe my elbow feels like this right now.
Right. Do you wake up in the morning thinking, oh, my elbow's fixed, and then you're like, oh shit, no, it's not. I screwed it up again.
I'm more nervous about telling the doctor. I'm more nervous about him being like, dude, what? Like what? And looking at it and being like, Jesus. Like I'm nervous about that response for him being like, fuck, dude.
I'm also worried that he's going to hear what happened and then say, well, we can't immediately go back in there for surgery. You have to like let it recover before we can jump back in
You think
there.
he denies
Totally.
doing this?
Oh, yeah,
Do you
for
think
sure.
he denies me like a second chance? Like he's like, go someone else. I'm not dealing with this.
No,
again.
it's more money in his pocket at the end of the day. Because like you
I'm
being
also-
stupid gets him
I'm
more
concerned
business.
about your like healthcare. What this is going to cost you? Is that a problem?
What do you mean? You think it will go up because of idiot? Like,
Well, no. Like, if this was covered the first time, but then it's clear that you just like ignored all advice, then like the healthcare
Look at
and what it costs to do
Frankie's
procedure,
face.
they're going to be
Zoom
like,
into his
they're just going to be like, we're not bad. Like you just are breaking your arm on purpose.
I didn't think of
Frankie's
that.
face was the most
Fuck.
concerned. I had no thought into that of all time, and oh my god, this is a bigger problem than I foresaw.
There's
Why would they cover that? Why wouldn't cover that?
Right, there's probably a clause in there that says you have to follow all of the procedures to then so it heals correctly, so we don't have to pay for this again.
Probably.
Fuck, dude.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. I probably wouldn't have said it publicly if I knew about that.
I'm trying to buy a house right now.
Yeah, I got a lot of things going on.
It just got
What do you guys
real.
want to talk about?
Yeah,
You wanna talk
just-
about Tiger Woods. You want to talk about history? What do you guys
I want to talk about Tiger Woods. Let's talk about Tiger
I gotta
Woods.
get this temperature down. I just got hot. Just got real hot.
I even heard Jake Bass laughing in there. That's good stuff. Tiger Woods. Are we ready to move on to Tiger Woods?
Yeah, I'm just going through my brain right now about what my next couple of weeks are gonna look like.
You want to call your doctor?
No, I don't know what to do. Yeah, I don't know. You know?
If you can cry if you want, if that makes you feel better on the pod.
It makes me like, but there was never like a timeline of like you had like there was never like you can't drum tomorrow, right? I was never told that. Like I'll fight that to the death, being like you never told me I can't like do this, I can't do that. I was never given a brace. I was never given a schedule on when I can be out of a sling. It was just like whenever you start feeling good, you can go drum. Like at the end of the month, you should be good. There was a lot of like you could have, you should have, you will be types of things. You know what I mean? It was never like this is you can't take this off until October 27th type of shit. It was like
You just gotta hope that there's not a common sense clause.
Well, the common sense was like,
It
yeah,
could
I
always
felt
hurt
good.
you for sure.
Like I felt good and I like practiced. I didn't practice for 4 hours. Healthcare people that are listening to this.
I was gonna say story's changing a little bit.
I practiced for like an hour and a half, lightly. Went through the fucking motions.
Turn these mics off.
Fuck.
Look, I'm rooting for you. I'm not on big health insurance.
Seems
right
like you're
now.
on
I'm
big
just
health
saying
insurance.
that, you know,
Health insurance has
medical
gotten enough money
procedures-
this fucking year anyway.
Healthcare industry is known to be quite expensive in our country, and I don't want to see you get financially hurt because you were playing the drums in front of a I just don't want to see that happen. I'm looking
That
at
video of us playing drums of us playing that song keeps getting views.
Take it down.
Just fucking delete it. Delete it. Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
So we spoke last show about footage that emerged from Tiger Woods following Charlie around, leaning on a golf club. We said that Tiger's just going to find his way with golf clubs in his hands. He's going to be flipping balls around and spinning clubs, and then eventually he'll just be hitting golf shots and then winning golf tournaments. Again, that's just part of the process. We have a source clearly inside of the Tiger Woods camp, whether this is a notification or a Ricky leak. It's on that level clearly because People Magazine has been updating. They've written a few articles in the last couple of days, and they just keep saying a source. A source tells People in this week's issue that Woods, quote, lives for his son Charlie, 12, and his daughter Sam, 14. And these quotes that are coming out again, if this was just someone who happened upon Tiger, chatted with him for 2 seconds, that didn't really know him, these quotes were basically written, it sounds like, by Mark Steinberg, which I love. We're very familiar on this show of the fact that what comes out of Camp Tiger is usually very carefully curated, and it's not usually a surprise to them. Another quote that came from a source says, being a dad has helped him stay focused on his recovery. At times, it's been very difficult for him, both physically and mentally. His leg injuries have caused him extreme pain, but he is a fighter and is determined to get better throughout. It then says he has worked very hard in physical therapy. He has had an incredible recovery. Now, again, these are all just from a source. These made me laugh out loud when I read them because, again, they're so perfectly written that a source would just kind of reveal these things to People Magazine. But all things considered, even if these are coming directly from Tiger Woods himself, I think they're very positive things for us to hear.
Absolutely. Very positive. Uplifting. Makes me feel better in my time right now. What I'm dealing with, the fact that a Tiger Woods who takes his recovery extremely seriously, it's great to hear that this guy's doing well and that he's on the right path.
He's taking his rehab seriously.
Yeah, right.
That's actually a good
See what I'm
question.
saying?
If Tiger had what you got done to his elbow, how long do you think he's out?
Probably 2 months.
Okay.
Probably doesn't swing a golf club for 2 months. Starts with light chips.
Yeah, and
So I'd
15
say
minutes a day, gets it tested.
10 days out, you're running Aunt Laura off the road, and 14 days out, you're drumming for 3 to 4 hours intensely.
I like where all this Tiger Woods stuff is headed. I think we all know where it's going. I think we all know where it's going. State-sponsored media is putting out quotes like this. You like to see things like that. As Tiger Woods guys, and we have been for a very long time in this podcast, I can see it. I see the vision, as the kids say. And it's good.
Agreed. Couldn't agree more. I think that's pretty much all that needs to be said. Right trajectory. Things are progressing like we said that they would. Tiger Woods will inevitably be back. He's obviously the most skilled and mentally tough golfer in the history of the game. So if he is physically there, which all of these signs continue to point that he will be, then he is just unstoppable at this point. It's inevitable as long as he doesn't drive his car off another road and get, stopped that way, then I think that we all know where this is going.
I have a question about
I feel like I feel like we could see, though, a Tiger blue block tweet here soon, though. Just an official
very
statement.
Very soon.
It does feel that way.
There's one coming that's going to be,
but it's got to be positive.
Telling.
It's going to be really positive.
I do think it's got to be positive, but it's going to give directive of where we're going next with Tiger Woods.
Maybe
Dude, do you remember
a goal of a tournament he wants to play or something, right? We have aspirations to play in the 2022 Masters. That is our next goal.
No, I actually, now that I'm
he's
thinking about
never
it,
done stuff
No,
like
no,
that.
he would never do that.
No.
What I think is going to happen, and it happened the last time around, it'll be a video. Be a video of him doing
I was
light
gonna
chipping.
say, remember on the simulator, all of a sudden he hit a 9-iron to a foot on a simulator, and that was the only video that we saw.
Right.
Was that from him, though? That was from him?
Yep. It was directly behind him. Yeah, I remember it.
Dude, and then a month later, he was in a black. He was in black pants and a red polo on the tee at Medalist and just ripped a drive down the middle, and it just wrote feeling pretty good or something like that.
Right, the captions were they were
crazy.
humble captions. He's like, I think I can still do this, and he's clearly like rehabbing as hard as he possibly can be. I don't think we'll get the blue block tweet until he commits to a tournament. I think that's the next one, unless it's a setback, which I doubt they'd even publicize.
Or some informative tweet of like, this is kind of what we're doing going forward. The next one's gonna feels like a big one though.
I have my notifications turned on for him, and it's just a lot of TGR tweets, just so many. I look at it, it says Tiger Woods tweet, and I'm like, oh, what? Maybe it's something with his injury. Nope, it's TGR. So I think a video is next for him. That's usually the step.
Dude, get this. His last blue block tweet, when do you think it was?
What is
March.
it? It's October.
February.
When was the crash? February?
Yeah, somewhere
Like
around
late, early, maybe mid-February.
I'd say late March.
It was April 7th.
Yeah.
there. Oh,
And it was him basically thanking the LA County Sheriff's Office for just protecting the fuck out of him and not releasing anything
Right.
to anyone
That-
ever.
being part of the Tiger team.
Right. We don't have to go back through it, but I believe they said we know why he crashed and we're not telling you.
Yeah, it was something
Like,
to that
okay.
effect.
Okay.
I think that was
really
the
good.
exact verbiage. Oh man, this is a very fun. I received word from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department that their investigation regarding my traffic incident back on February 23rd in Los Angeles has been completed and closed. I am so grateful to both the Good Samaritans who came to assist me and called 911. I am also thankful to the LASD deputies and LA firefighter paramedics, especially LSD, for helping me to expert blah, blah, blah. I will continue to focus on my recovering family. Thanks, everyone, for overwhelming support and encouragement I've received through this difficult time. You're welcome. But he did just, the last blue block one was to say, thank you for closing the investigation, is basically what he said. That's April 7th.
That's 6 months ago.
6 months we haven't seen shit from him. So yeah, the next one better be big. He can't just put out like feeling pretty good in recovery. Like his next one needs to be big.
I think it's a video.
I do
Or
too. I think it's a golf swing video.
yeah, or a picture of him on the range with a bucket of balls next to him or something like that.
Yeah. We
Like
paint our own picture.
Yeah, progressing nicely or something like that.
You know how easily we could just fake a Tiger Woods release right now? We could just take a picture of him from the past with him on a range with a bucket of balls, put the sleeve on his leg, and then just Photoshop it in there. That would go crazy viral. But
People would hate us.
And we're
risky
then we're
business.
outside the Tiger camp. Yeah, then
It's risky
we don't
business,
want
but
No.
that would get some numbies.
Well,
as
if we
Dave
did
said.
that, we couldn't put it out from our channels.
No, fuck no. We'd put it out from some burner account. We would just retweet it.
Right.
Like, whoa, look at this.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Can't believe it.
Here?
Can't believe it. It's written exactly how Foreplay writes all their tweets. Okay.
Real quick, I have a
PeterMillar.com
question.
slash-
I have a real question about healthcare for a second.
Oh boy.
How did they know when I first got my surgery that I didn't like go in there and just fucking like shoot my nerve, and then I went like I wasn't like negligent about like my first surgery? I didn't talk to anyone from big healthcare. They just approved it. You know what I mean? They don't know how it got there.
The problem is the incredibly short amount of time from the first one to the second one.
So we'll wait a little bit.
You don't have that kind of time.
You know what I mean? I'll wait a little bit. My point is, like, they didn't know how I got injured the first time. What if I was like a fucking idiot and I like took a knife and I was like, I'm gonna fucking go get surgery? 'cause
But why would
I
you
get
do that?
hard on surgeries? And they don't know who I am, what kind of shit I'm into.
I think the problem is you're trying to get another one so soon. They're gonna be like, "What's
Yeah.
going on here?"
Right, and I would say like if you are a high risk living human being, you pay more for health premiums and whatnot. So if they're like they're there to protect themselves. So I'm just worried that they're going to look at the evidence, look at like, okay, this guy hadn't had surgery on his elbow ever, had surgery, was extremely public about not caring about his surgery, and then needs surgery.
I care
again.
about
why
the
fuck are we
surgery.
gonna? Why are we gonna pay for that?
I care about the surgery. I just have to go back to work. Like, healthcare people need to realize that you got to go work. You know what I mean? My work just happens to be playing the drums and pluck.
Their argument might be, well, then if your work is going to just continue to make us have to pay thousands for a surgery every 2 months, we're not paying for your surgery.
Okay, you're out of here.
Or
That's
your
my
premiums
concern
go
for you.
way up.
I hope your eyes go back.
That was me. That was really.
Well,
you're lashing out now, and it's like that was me.
And you're lashing out based on your own poor decisions, which is double worse, double bad.
Right, and you definitely care about the surgery. You have a track record of not caring about the rehab.
I care about the rehab.
No, you don't.
I wasn't told any rehab.
That seems wrong.
I'm telling you.
Feels like Frankie's in a corner right now.
I'm telling you, bro. I wasn't. I would have done it. I asked about physical therapy. There was no physical therapy.
They said none. Doctor said,
He's like,
hey,
you don't really need
you're
it.
good.
He's like, you don't really need it.
Yeah, that's how doctors talk.
Bro.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Your arm's
you're
still
fine.
yellow and bruised up. Yeah, you're good. Why don't
Get
you
out
go
there.
play in a hockey game?
Yeah.
Bro,
Run Aunt Laura off the road. Get out there, pal.
That's the vibe I got. I'm not kidding.
Peter Millar, petermillar.com/foreplay. Please go there, explore the Crown Sport outerwear and the full range of Peter Millar apparel. I've got on right here Peter Millar hoodie. They got crew necks. They got Q zips, which are the best in the world. And then again, they've got these fantastic hoodies. I believe, we all bought hoodies at Band of Dunes that were Peter Millar. Even though we get Peter Millar gear sent to us because they are one of our great partners, we still had to go into the pro shop. We had to purchase these hoodies that they make at Peter Millar because they're that good. Right, gentlemen?
Lava wash. 2 words that changed my life. Lava wash, and I guess 3 words, hoodies.
Yep.
Those things. Frankie's got one on right now.
It's as good as it gets.
I was always worried as a bigger guy who has a large, just a large
Cover the
body.
belly?
Just a belly, and I was actually going to go a little higher. A large, these bad boys here. Sometimes tits. Sometimes, depending on the clothing or the type, it pulls on you and it pulls in the wrong places, and I just don't look very good and stuff like that. The Lava Wash hoodies and all the Peter Millar hoodies, they don't pull or grab in the wrong places, and they're as comfortable as hell, and you can play golf in them. Everything about their hoodies are A1. Peter Millar,
I had a
awesome.
big guy reach out to me. This guy, Michael Brazelton. He's like, love the content. Looking into buying some Peter Millar. I'm 6'5", 260. A little preface of just like, I'm into bigger items.
Yeah.
And I gave him the rundown. I'm like, yeah, they're excellent. They're super comfortable. I was like, yeah, you probably want to go like X or double XL. You're a little bit bigger than I. And then I was like, but don't worry, like they're plenty long, covers up the belly, really nice like piece of clothing. And he just gave a big thumbs up to the cover up the belly, because that's the big risk, I think, when you go up high, how much undercarriage you're showing, and that it's covered up, man. It's an excellent piece of clothing.
Sizes
you guys were all in the blues. I think I was in the red of the lava clothing.
Sizes run true for me. I'm an XL in everything, and I'm an XL in the Peter Millar hoodies too.
Same.
Yeah, I would say if you have a belly, then you always run the risk of the belly showing.
100%.
We know. We know,
as
skinny
everybody.
guy.
Well, agreed. I think we've all had
Preaching
our
to
belly
the choir.
show at some point. Peter Millar does a great job in every aspect in terms of being golfable. You could be classy. You look really, really good. Incredibly comfortable. They got a lot of great options, and nobody does outerwear layering better than Peter Millar. So go to petermillar.com/foreplay and check out all the options. Check out a lot of our favorite options. So rules of golf. Clearly, distance has been a big point of contention for several years now. The USGA and R&A announced earlier this year that they were considering a provision to the rule that essentially bans 48-inch long drivers and limits it at 46 inches. Phil Mickelson, when he won the PGA Championship at Kiowa, was using a 47.5-inch driver. This would be a local rule that places tournaments, events, courses, whatever, have the option to adopt or not to adopt, which essentially is telling everyone that there's going to be 2 sets of rules. If you're an amateur and you're like us, slapping it around, go ahead and use a however long driver you want. Sure, we don't care. If you are, on the PGA Tour, and the PGA Tour has adopted this new rule that is a recommendation from the USGA and R&A, then players on the PGA Tour and LPGA Tour, etc., cannot use a driver longer than 46 inches. Phil Mickelson came out immediately when this was announced and was against it, when this was pros. And then when it was announced yesterday, that they're going to indeed adopt it, it's going to start in 2022, Phil Mickelson wrote, quote, he quoted, "Stupid is as stupid does," and then cited Mrs. Gump. And then he wrote, "Really, though, are the amateurs trying their best to govern the professional game the stupid ones or the professionals the stupid ones for letting them. So Phil was extremely vocal, I would say, against this move by the USGA and RNA. JT, Justin Thomas, responded and just said awful was the only thing that he said. So clearly they're against it. I imagine on this show we're against it as well. I think we've said for a while, like, doing 2 sets of rules is really dumb because you're going to get all these hardos that are then like, oh, are you not playing by the way that the PGA Tour people play? That score is invalidated, and it leads to a whole shitty part of golf where the real, one of the great intrigues of golf is this idea that you can go play a hole, any hole in the world that PGA Tour pros play, the best players in the world play, and you might hit 2 of your best shots of your life and play that hole better than somebody. Frankie, 8th hole at Pebble Beach, has been saying for years now. It's the only thing he ever says whenever we bring up the U.S. Open, that like, oh, I bet every player in the field would have taken the way I played that.
They
hole.
would have.
That's one of the cool parts about golf.
3
Now,
wood
all of a
to the
sudden
end
we're-
of the first fairway. Wind was, I don't know, what would you guys say? It was 15, 20 miles an hour left to right. Maybe hurting a little bit. Definitely hurting a little bit. Took a 6-iron. Caddy told me hang it out left. I hung it out left. Came right back in with a nice little baby draw, back of the green, rolled towards the green, rolled towards the pin. Let's call it 10, 15 feet for bird. Of course, missed the birdie putt, never even gave it a chance. It was short the whole way. Tapped it in for a nice par. Many pros take that during the U.S. Open. I mean, the average score on that hole is like a 4.5.
To hurt these types of stories and memories, we've been very much against, and in general to really try to bring back and make the game harder, make it more difficult, bring back the distance. We've been against it. And there's certain things that I imagine like we could debate and before in that, but the length of the driver has seemed a little bit ridiculous to us, and just generally something that we're not crazy about. It'll be very fascinating to see how the players overall, accept it, if it's just going to be adopted, which it sounds like it is, if there's going to be a lot of bitching, if there's going to be a lot of pushback, if the USGA and RNA will care about that. But I'm not sure if anybody else has any thoughts on the reaction thus far or just the move in general.
So we were just talking about big guys. And what if like Shaq makes the PGA Tour? Because I saw the 46-inch cut. It was like is that just a hard, fast and rule? It's not like percentage of height. Like, I don't know. That was my only thing that jumped in my brain. I'm not for restricting drive because, like, yes, you're probably more accurate. Yes, you're probably shorter, but that rewards somebody taking the risk of a longer shaft to hit the ball a little bit further. Maybe it's a little bit more offline. I'd rather just never acknowledge this rule. But with that, does anybody know? Is there any like, oh, Shaq's on the PGA Tour, so he can use a 60-inch driver?
So you're saying if a 7'2" player comes along,
Yeah.
does he have to abide by these same restrictions?
Yes.
I mean, everybody does. I
think he does.
It's
That's
not
crazy.
based on proportion of height, right? It's just that's just the length.
Right. That's ridiculous to me.
It's unfortunate for the big boys.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, big boys.
I would like to see a 7'2" golfer, now that we're bringing that up, a pro 7'2" golfer. That'd be amazing.
Who's the tallest golfer of all time? Is it VJ Singh?
Nope.
He's a tall dude.
It's pretty tough. Tallest player on PGA Tour.
Isn't there that like Norwegian Newlander or something
Isn't
like that?
Patton Kizzaire's pretty tall. He's the one who Patton Kizzire always jumps to
he's
mind.
6'5", Patton Kizzire.
Yeah, he's really tall.
Tallest player of all time, I believe, is Phil Blackmar.
How tall was he?
6'7".
Patton Kizzire's there.
There's somebody out there that's now 6'8", it sounds like.
Oh.
Oh yeah, remember that guy John Thompson? There was a couple pictures of him. I think.
Oh yeah, he's massive.
He's massive. I got tagged in his photos a ton, being like, "There's literally a."
Oh, here we go. Jordan Hahn. He recently became the tallest person.
How tall?
6'8".
Wow.
This guy, it says
small.
This guy Thompson, 6'9", competed in his first major Thursday. So I think I don't know that he was technically on like the PGA Tour circuit, but I think he qualified for the British Open. So he was like the tallest player ever to tee it up on either the PGA Tour or European Tour, because obviously a major counts. But he qualified, I think, for the Open Championship. He's 6'9" out there. So yeah, you're telling me this guy's just like, hey, dude, I'm really tall and I need a really tall club, and they're just gonna say no? That seems wild to me.
Right. I would love to know his driver length. Like if he has to shorten it up by 5-6 inches, now he's got to get a whole new swing.
Right. Is he using
He's got to use 46.
Right. Is he currently using a 50 something?
I would love to know.
Oh, I would love to know. Yeah. Where's his specs at?
Pictures of this guy are outrageous.
He's huge. I remember I had forgotten about him, but you
What's
guys.
his name again?
John Thompson, right?
Yeah, I think that's
Let's
right.
see this guy.
I do believe that the current rule, though, is 48 inches is the max.
Oh, okay. If that's the case, then I didn't know
I think
there
they're
was a hard
just dialing
fast rule.
it back 2 inches. I think they're dialing it back 2
Okay.
inches. But either way, I mean, the point being, like, I don't think the rule is based on your height. So I think that's just the rule. I think the rule is 48 inches. Now they're going to change it to 46. People are not happy about that in terms of some folks on the PGA Tour.
Right, like how much do they consult, if at all, with PGA Tour players before they make a decision like this? Like, they had to know that there were people who were not going to be happy about it, and you've got two gigantic stars in the game of golf, in Phil Mickelson and Justin Thomas, who as soon as the decision came down, they teed off, no pun, on the USGA about this decision. It's like, at some point, you got to consult somebody.
So one thing that Phil Mickelson said, he said, it is extremely disappointing to find out that the PGA Tour adopted the new USGA rule through the media. I don't know of any player who had any say or any kind of representation in this matter. He put kind of a thinking emoji, and he said, I do know many are wondering if there's a better way, which is a funny way to phrase his tweet.
So I guess the answer to my question is no. In Phil's world, he doesn't know a single person who they talked to about this decision.
Now, I do want to say, Millie Fick at Mickelson-esque on Twitter responded, love you, Phil, but every sport, indeed every profession, needs independent governing bodies. Golf is no different. And then Phil responded to Millie Fick, true, but ignoring information from those who understand the game better than anyone is negligent at best, which I agree with Phil. And there should be independent governing bodies, but there should also be at least some input. It's not like the players should be the only ones determining everything,
right?
Or the only ones whose input matters, but it should be weighted and counted to some degree, I would say.
I agree with that. I think Phil very much obviously agrees with that. And that's, I guess, my question, like, how much did they do? It sounds like very little. But that's, again, coming from Phil. So he obviously wants to be as, up in arms about it as he possibly can be. But if they didn't ask around at least a little bit, big miss. Big miss.
Yeah, and I think we're pretty much we've been under the stance for years now of we want to see golf balls being hit to the moon. Like we've been told by manufacturers, we interviewed those guys who came on here that, they have technology where if it was allowed, they could put it in people's hands and they could just hit the ball like 450 yards because it'd be, and we're like, yeah, let's just do that. If you can control that, that'd be incredible. Like Bryson DeChambeau is must-watch TV. When he drove the fucking green or hit it over the water at Bay Hill and then went like that, like he's a WWE wrestler. I mean, we got a guy that listens to the show who framed that, put it on his wall behind him when he plays video games. Like, that is must-see TV. The Ryder Cup, obviously the first hole when Bryson was flexing his muscles and then drove the green and made an eagle too. That drives eyeballs. That's amazing. We had people at the U.S. Amateur at Oakmont who were taking wildly different lines, hitting it in different fairways because now they can hit the ball so far. And again, I think that is quite intriguing. I think like for the 0.00001% of golfers who are now so good at the game, there could be tweaks made to courses. We've seen a lot of courses like Riviera has stood up over the test of time as an extremely difficult golf course. Scores aren't that low. Bay Hill, very similar. A lot of years, scores are in the single digits under par that win those tournaments. So there are ways to protect scores so people aren't 25, 30 under all the time. But bottom line is like, breaking 80 at the old course at St. Andrews used to be considered an unimaginable task, even for the best players in the world, for old and young Tom Morris. Guess what? Now people shoot like 59s and stuff. The game just progresses and gets better. And to try to completely, stop that or panic about one aspect of it because players are just hitting it too far seems very, very extreme and an overreaction.
I agree. It does allow to bring some courses back though, which is kind of interesting. Like some courses that just haven't been played in a long, long time. Like that would be cool to see different courses potentially on the PGA Tour. What what is your fix for people just bombing it over anything? There's no fix, just tee it up. If they hit it a country mile onto the green, that's fine.
For the most part, yes, I think that's fine. And I don't think, right, like there have been, Bryson is the example of this, right? He just spends 100% of his time. He's doing speed training. He does world on drive contests. Bryson has weeks where he hits it sideways. He had
Right.
a few months ago at the British Open. He just said my driver sucks, and he was all furious because that course, Royal St. George, has been around forever. Is designed in a way where, like, yeah, if he was driving it really straight, like Colin Morikawa or not, he would have had a huge advantage. But he was driving it a little bit sideways, and he played pretty terrible for him. And it's not like he wins every single week, right? And so I think the reason I think it's a little bit of an overreaction is just because, like, it's not only like Morikawa is not the longest driver in the game. You know, like he won a major championship. Like there are players who can still play the game based on different strengths and have a lot of success. So it's not like that has just completely ruined the entire game of golf is my issue. And there's one guy who was found who is doing this, you know, the distance thing that, don't get me wrong, there's other people hitting it far, but one guy has like completely transformed his body. It's the only thing he ever does. He doesn't have family. He doesn't do anything else, to the point where Kevin Kisner's like, that guy needs to like get laid and have a family. So like, it seems a little bit of an overreaction. I think that's why Phil responded that way. I think that's why JT responded that way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel the big fear is that Bryson does what he did to Wingfoot at like Augusta or something of that nature. I think is like the fear of golfers, where they just don't want that to happen, where he's hitting in his spots, hitting 60-degree wedges, and honestly playing a different golf course. So I feel like that one example is a big enough risk that it's like, we got to change it. We have to shorten these clubs. We can't let the ball go that far. Yeah, not super supportive, but I will say if there's tournament, like especially for the majors, not supportive, but if there's some tournaments over the course of this year that like they add different courses in that we haven't seen in a long, long time, and it's saying upon entry, like it's 46-inch drivers, if that alone feels stupid to say, like it feels gimmicky, but part of me is not totally against that, honestly, in one way or another. Just because I love seeing new courses on the PGA Tour.
I do too. And I do think the biggest argument for dialing back distance is sort of the agronomy of it, right? Like it costs, if we just keep having to build golf courses bigger and bigger,
Right.
watering those courses, keeping the grass, taking up more of planet Earth where there's only finite space by just expanding golf courses, it goes on forever. Like there are now homes and buildings and streets and stuff that like you just can't do that forever. And then the other one is obviously bringing back or allowing as many golf courses in the world to be able to if they're kept in the right shape, like be a test for the best players in the world. But I think the number one thing that like Jack has mentioned, that Tiger Woods has mentioned, has been dialing back the golf ball. Like if there's a way in engineering to just say, okay, the ball goes 20% less far now, like you don't have to worry about drivers and that entire part of the industry or the clubs or the grooves, and you could just bring back the distances by the golf ball by 20%, like then the golf ball that's still better than the other golf balls is still going to be better because it's just now just 20%. I don't know scientifically if they could do that. I've heard people say that all the time, but if they could do that in the way that it seems like people think that they can, that seems like a much better option than like, oh, now the drivers just can only be 2 inches shorter than it used to be able to be. That feels a little bit like
for sure
a Band-Aid or something, you know what I mean? Where it's like,
for sure.
Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Do we think that Bryson is at or near the ceiling of driving distance, or could it keep going even further?
No, because I would say they thought that, like you could find quotes from like the 1930s where they thought that, where they're like, this is getting a little ridiculous. I don't know if anybody could hit it farther than this. Like,
I guess we've just never really seen somebody attack it like Bryson, where he is legitimately trying to hit the ball as far as a human can hit a ball. And at some point that's got to max out. I understand what you're saying, where you can't keep building these bigger and bigger golf courses because there's not all that much land. But like, I really think, and again, I could be wrong, but that Bryson's got to be close to as far as you can hit a golf ball.
I agree with that.
Yeah, but I think that's the technology too. It's like yeah, he might be swinging near like max human capacity with like stability to make good contact. That'd be an interesting study, like what the human body can actually take. But
I agree.
like, as you know, if they make an advancement in the ball, or if that keeps improving, like, oh, because it does feel like every year, every other year, TaylorMade or some, comes out with, hey, our ball goes another 5 or 10 yards further on, 100-mile-an-hour swing, or whatever the case may be.
Sure.
So I think that's the biggest risk. And like, then you're just taking away golf courses. So
it does, Trent, it does feel that way. Like, I think that when he starts swinging, but like a year ago when he came out here, it was like he was at, 190 or something ball speed, and everyone was like, holy shit. Dude, then he was changing the way between a month and a half ago that he was preparing for PGA Tour events to prepare for the World Long Drive, where he then was hitting it further. So in like a few months, he was able to figure out how to hit it a little bit further. Now you're going to give people the human species 30 years. Like, I feel like in 30 years, they're going to be hitting it. Somebody will be hitting it way farther, even though it seems incomprehensible right now.
Yeah, I guess to me, at some point, your knees have to explode. Your lower half just has to explode. But then it's like Lurch is saying, what are the advancements in equipment? And that's the difference.
Yeah, and that it does get tricky because like every landing zone at different courses is potentially different. Like, it's not going to be, hey, on a driver, you should hit a 260 every time. Like, sometimes it calls for a little bit further. Like, that tee to landing zone isn't always consistent on course to course based on how far they can stretch it back. So if they were to make any changes to, say, the golf ball, which I do agree is like the most consistent, like, issue to solve, then you'd almost have to change it per course, which now seems like the stupidest thing in the world.
Why would you have to change it per course?
Well, if tee to green is different each time, or like tee to landing zone of the fairway should be different each time, I guess you wouldn't. I guess no, never mind. I played that.
I think
out
you're
in my head.
overthinking it. I think that's crazy town.
100%. That is.
But like
crazy
Bryson said after the World Long Drive, when he
Just
was
talking
like,
it out. I'm with it.
when he was like, this is really going to, like, what I've developed in the last whatever to prepare for the World Long Drive is going to really help me on the PGA Tour, because even on spots now where, like, my distance always helps, where he's like, if the max you want to hit the ball on a par 4 where there's bunkers everywhere is like 280, someone else might be having to rip a 3-wood perfectly 280, whereas he's like, I could hit like a 5-iron like out there that far. So that distance is helping him all of the time, where he's like, it's way easier for me to hit a 6-iron or 5-iron or 4-iron, than it is for somebody else. And the dispersion rate over 72 holes and like ultimately gives me a little bit of an advantage. So, the distance thing is obviously always going to be a discussion, and it's been a discussion forever, but like, it's going to be a discussion going on into the future for the history of golf. And guess what? Like, hitting it further will just always be an advantage. Like, Bryson DeChambeau spends his time in Chris Como's fucking, fantasy factory there in Dallas, ripping and ripping and ripping and doing speed drills and cranking music, while Kevin Kisner's having a bottle of wine and like living a little bit of a normal life in Aiken. Like, that man is probably going to have an advantage when he shows up on the golf course. And I think that just makes sense to people.
Right, and I remember when the Bryson stuff first started and it worked and he won at Wingfoot, we were worried that this was going to spawn an entire generation of people who were going to try to hit the ball like this. Dude, if you watch what Bryson has to do, I actually think it might have the opposite effect. Like, nobody wants to be doing what he's doing. He's the only guy in the world willing to put in that type of work, and I really think if you looked at that as an up-and-coming professional golfer, you would say, I'm going to figure out a different way. I don't want to be in that fantasy factory swinging as hard as I can, probably blowing my knee out at some point. Like, I'm just going to try to get better at putting.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, at a certain point, like, people rest on their laurels. Well, it's like, you just like are okay. Like Kisner, obviously he works his ass off, but he's not going to that level extent. And then there was, like, I think our guy, Matty Fitz, even said like, well, I could put on like 15 or 20 pounds too. Like, this is ridiculous what he's doing. I don't know if do you guys remember those comments? It's like, and then obviously he didn't go through with it.
He was like the first guy on the tour who to chirp Bryson about the whole thing.
And we talked about how it's like physically impossible for him to do that. He doesn't have the frame. It's like me saying, well, I'm just going to go get really jacked and buff and hit the ball 400 yards. I can't even pick up a club right now.
Right. Bryson has that frame. I remember the first time that we saw him in person, Riggs, at the Zurich Classic, when he was on the driving range, and I did not realize that he has the body of a linebacker. Like, he has the frame of a linebacker. You can put weight on that. He is thick. You can put weight on a body like that.
And look, there's this obsession with golf of trying to make everything completely fair, right? The handicap system, the distances, the fact that, golf should be more about artistry and the shaping of shots, and you shouldn't. There's an advantage to having a certain physical frame. If you are born 6'9" and you're really good at basketball, and you're born 5'9" and you're really good at basketball, there is an enormous advantage to the guy that's 6'9". That is an aspect of sport. That is going to be an aspect of golf. The more and more and more that golf has evolved into, more athletes taking over and playing the game than it used to be, that's going to continue to be an advantage and should always be an advantage. And I just feel like golf, again, for whatever reason, is constantly striving to try to remove that advantage or at least diminish it. And I almost think you could argue that it's unfair that way, that why are you trying to remove this, athletic feat? Like, being able to hit the ball and working your dick off to hit the ball incredibly far is a huge advantage. Why should they be focused on trying to take that advantage back?
And this affects, like we always say, 0.00001% of people. Like, whenever we go to golf courses, and we're somewhat capable golfers, like, we're able to put the ball in the air and then eventually in the hole.
It's a good way to put it.
Like, we're looking sometimes to move up a tee, or we're having discussions. Should we go 6,700 yards or 64, or do we want to have more fun today and go 61? Like, distance for us is not an issue. Like, they don't need to be expanding these golf courses into parking lots and into houses and into condos. Like, the golf courses are long enough as they are. Like, they're almost too long. Like, when we show up to a Bethpage Black style course, we're like, what animal made this? Like, why are we doing this today? So the fact that they look at golf in general based off of a Bryson DeChambeau really just irritates me. Like, I'm like, that's not where golf is going. Golf is not the 140 guys on tour. That's not what golf is. It's the professional league, for sure. We love to watch it. It's what we talk about 10% of the time on this podcast. But that's not golf. That's not the sport. We all play golf. We go to Eisenhower. We go to the local country clubs. Like, that's where the sport's going to progress. The millions of people that play it not on PGA Tour that don't care about the distance. So, I'm done hearing about this fucking thing.
And I think that's
my point. I'm done talking about it.
And I think that's part of what Phil meant when he said they adopted this rule through the media, where they're just seeing all these headlines about what's been going on the last 18 months with Bryson, and they're like, we got to change something. When it's like, you're looking at the wrong part.
The difference between golf and other major sports like baseball, if they want to adopt a new rule in baseball, that affects baseball, right? Like, every single player that plays it has aspirations to become a professional. When you're in high school, when you're in college, when you're in the minor leagues, when you're in MLB, you're trying to make it to that professional level. The professional level is the sport. So when they change the bats, when they do this, that makes a massive difference to the future of the sport. We are golf. You know what I mean?
Right.
The people that play, we are the people that play the sport.
We the people.
We are the ones they're making the rules for. That is you know what I mean? It's just, it blows my mind that they're not seeing that, and that they're having these UN type meetings.
Document with "We are the people."
We are golf. We are golf, and they're having these UN type meetings about 4 guys that hit the ball just a little too far for them.
I completely agree. And it'd be one thing if they were doing this for those players, that small group, and those players are like, yep, but those players are the ones that are most vocally saying it's fucking stupid. So it's
dumb.
what are we really doing this for? And I think that Phil had a good point where he's like, they're just responding to media and a small sect of golf media, golf social, whoever, that are really, really upset about the distance, and not thinking, because basically people respond to headlines and a few hashtags that are going against them, and people panic about it, when in reality, I don't know that that's 100% the case.
They're also acting like Bryson has won 13 majors already, and this is a problem. This guy's taken over the sport. We got to wrangle this thing back. I mean, he's really just not doing that at all. So,
we are golf.
We got much more to get to on this. Shopify, you can get much more from them. Shopify is more than a store. You can connect with your customers. You can drive sales. You can manage your day-to-day. Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big business. So upstart, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronized online, in-person sales, and basically just effortlessly stay informed. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility. Believe me, we started out selling all kinds of brands. We were selling T-shirts. We were selling significantly different and much less variety of the things that we're selling now. Now we're selling all kinds of Peter Millar gear. We got hoodies. We got golf accessories. We're making head covers. We get all kinds of different stuff now. And Shopify has clearly helped us scale because success is a million milestones on a forever evolving path. That almost sounds like William Shatner wrote that. Reach customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. Synchronize your online and in-person sales. Go to shopify.com/Fore, all lowercase on FORE, for a free 14-day trial, and you can get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. So again, go over, check out shopify.com/Fore. Grow your business with Shopify today at shopify.com/Fore right now. That is shopify.com/Fore. Get a free 14-day trial, and you can get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. All right. We've talked a lot about the rules, about distance. Like I mentioned at the very top of the show, I did a little bit of research about the history of the rules of the game of golf. I found some very interesting things in there that I think we're going to enjoy discussing. Now, a lot of people understand kind of that golf goes back 600-700 years. The first ever known recording of kind of golf taking place, or what a lot of people reference, is actually February 26th, 1297.
Wow. What?
In Leonin.
Where?
Hold on.
Leon?
You know, sometimes you copy paste stuff and then it gives it that to you, that really light orange font on the notes app. You could barely read it.
Right.
Leonin Gaan de Vecht. It's basically the Dutch. All right. The Dutch played a game with a stick and a leather ball
Dutch
where
bastard.
the winner was.
What was that? What is it? Can't think of it?
This is one of those broken brain moments. I just quoted the movie and I can't think of the movie.
Dutch bastards.
You Dutch bastards.
It's not Austin Powers,
It's
is
Austin Powers.
Okay,
Yeah.
there. All right.
That's
That's
right.
right.
I thought that was too.
That's right. Nope, that's right. All right, so it's the Dutch in 1291?
February 26th, 1297.
Okay.
They recorded a game in which they used a stick and a leather ball, and the winner was declared by whoever hit the ball with the fewest amount of attempts into a target several hundred yards away.
That's golf, baby.
Sounds like golf to me. Now, what's often referenced the most as sort of the first real true records that golf was existing and was legitimate was James II's Act of Parliament on the 6th of March, 1457, where he banned golf and football because they wanted their capable, males to focus more on archery and military training because they had a weak monarchy and they wanted people to focus on archery. It was banned for a very long time, for hundreds of years, even though people continued to play. And then the first known rules that were ever implemented were in 1744. They were called the Articles and Laws in Playing at Golf, and they were drafted by the Gentlemen Golfers of Leith, also known or later known as the Honorable Company of Edinburgh Golfers, which I would say the Honorable Company of Edinburgh Golfers is such a great way to describe a group that we might want to consider throwing that in with foreplay. But during the next 100 years, individual codes were adopted by more than 30 different clubs. Many of the copied were borrowed literally liberally from the 13 Articles, which again was the thing I referenced earlier. Many of those over the next 100 years, so between 1744 and mid-1800s, a lot of the rules that we still use today were adopted then, including the rule for an unplayable lie, things like that. Now, where it gets very interesting was much tweaking and evolution over time took place. For example, there were various procedures for how to put a ball back into play when taking relief for a ball in a water hazard. So obviously, to best understand this, back in the day, golf was sort of emerging in different places, right? Like St. Andrews, Edinburgh. We talked about the Dutch earlier, but there wasn't the fucking internet. There wasn't a ton of conversation. So each place would kind of have their own set of rules. And even today, like when we hit a ball into a water hazard, we're still asking each other, like, what can I drop here? Like, where exactly can I go?
It's like it's like beer pong. It's like beer pong.
Exactly.
Local rules.
That's exactly right.
Local rules.
The rule to put a ball back into play when taking relief from hitting a ball into the water back in the day had multiple different ways that areas did it. In St. Andrews in 1754, the rule was you just throw the ball at least 6 yards behind the hazard.
Okay.
Unreal. I like that rule a lot.
Okay.
So I interpret that as you literally just had to, like wherever it went in, you just had to turn around and you had to try to throw it probably like 6 yards and 1 inch would be probably the best like throw that you could have.
Right.
If you undershot it or underthrew it, would they make you rethrow it?
You probably had to rethrow it. I would think if they, and then imagine they'd be out there measuring like, dude, you didn't throw that 6 yards and you had to try to rethrow it.
Penalty stroke after 3 bad drops, like 3 bad throws. You
gotta just throw it better.
So the third one, you just got to huck.
Right.
In 1776 at Bruntsfield Links, the rule was you just throw the ball overhead with no provision as to how far. So you hit the ball into a water hazard, then you would just stand in a spot, you take a penalty shot, then you would just stand where it went in, and you could just throw the ball as far as you wanted.
You could advance it, you're saying?
It says throw the ball overhead with no provision as to how far.
Unreal.
I like that a lot too.
That's a good rule.
I was thinking as I was reading through these that we should consider in some of our matches just adopting
100%.
rules from like a certain time.
If we can find
the
first rules at a certain golf club that we're playing, those should be the rules that we play.
I like adopting, like you're saying, or even just finding, pulling one out of a hat and being like, all right, today we're playing this club's rules today, and then we're just throwing golf balls around.
I got to tell you, you guys are going to love, I think, from 1812 in St. Andrews, and you guys are going to love this one the most. You hit a ball into a water hazard, you tee the ball and play it from behind the hazard.
Yep.
That's a good rule.
Absolutely.
How good is that?
I mean, on a par 5, it becomes beneficial. You just pound it in the hazard, and then you tee it up from there and smash one up to the green.
It's so beneficial.
Right.
It's the best rule.
It's strategic to hit it into the water in that case.
You're like, get in the water, creep into the water.
Get in there.
Right, you're
That's a
hitting
good rule.
3 teed up.
Right, perfect.
No problem.
Because if I don't do that, I got to hit hybrid wedge up there anyways to the same spot. Might as well just hit a driver and save everybody time.
Wow.
Yeah, imagine too, like the guy next to you, it's just his ball ended up like a yard short of the water, and he's buried in this brutal rough spot, and you're 2 yards left to him, just teeing one up with your driver, taking a little practice swing, and you just roast a driver down there.
This sounds like my dad's rules, by the way. I think my dad is definitely 1812. That's where he got it from, the 1812 St. Andrews book.
He was inspired by them.
That's right.
That's cool.
Before you go into the next one, boys, I got to go back to my world of Axon, go back to drone
God.
sales. So, I love you all. I'll talk to you later.
See you, big man.
Bye, Large. Go get him.
What time is it right now?
Keep going, Riggs.
2:30.
1809, the Honorable Company, which I mentioned earlier, they came up with the rule that you face the hole and drop the ball overhead, which is not that dissimilar from really what we were doing.
It's more of like a mic drop, though.
Yeah, it does feel like a mic drop. Yeah, you're right. And
You
it
know?
feels a little bit more random, like that ball comes in with a little more velocity.
Right.
I like that the best so far. Well, aside from teeing it up, I like that better than the knee high. The knee high one makes you look like a pansy.
In 1825 in Perth, you drop the ball over the shoulder. So I think you would just do this.
It's like when you spill salt on the table.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
I don't hate that one.
From these pretty much all were eventually looped into dropping the ball back over your shoulder like this from like the basically forever until 1984. That's how people did it, was the way we kind of just described.
No
and
way.
then
1984?
Yeah, they used to drop the ball in crazy fashion. Like that's literally how they used to drop it. You have to face backwards, I believe, and then drop it reverse over your shoulder, like towards the hole, kind of.
Why have I never seen that? There has to be clips of that. No?
I believe that there are. I want to pull some up so badly.
Holy shit.
Dropping a golf ball, 1975. Let's write that.
Yeah. Let's see what that pulls
So
up.
Tiger Woods dropped a ball like that in his life?
Tiger was born late 70s, I believe.
He was born in 75.
Probably.
So yeah, he was 10 years
certainly
old.
Yeah, obviously he was playing at a very young age.
Right. 8-year-old Tiger's dropping the ball behind his back like that?
I'd love to ask him that question, by the way. Probably not the hard-hitting Tiger questions that people would want, but I want to know if he's ever dropped a ball behind his back like that.
God, all these responses are so like, hey, when I Google it, it's like, oh, this is how you're supposed to drop a golf ball. And it's all this bullshit, brutal stuff from the USGA. No offense. We do like the USGA. Dropping a golf ball, 1975.
Got to be something.
Ooh. How to hit a golf ball. That's all the...
Boy.
I don't need that. I've probably seen that video. I want to say until 1984, that is literally how they dropped the ball. And then in 1984, my research showed that it was first implemented that you drop the ball from shoulder height facing the hole. So I do believe until 1984, you literally drop the ball like this.
Man, if people can find clips of that, send them to us, tweet them at us, email them to us, because I want to see it. I think that's incredible.
Now, another example, again, of these same rules, where you had different rules, ping pong rules, local rules. When a player played the opponent's ball or a wrong ball, in 1828 in Blackheath, the opponent plays the ball as it lies, and there is no penalty. So if you play your opponent's ball, your opponent just gets to play the ball from there.
Whoa. I thought it was going to be you chop off their head. Like that feels like such a violation that if you are in the 1700s, like there could be some blood spilled. And it would be within the rules. But they just get to play it, huh?
The opponent plays the ball as it lies, and there is no penalty. What if you just hit your opponent's ball into the water? Like
Right.
You're
That's
like,
what I was thinking.
Oh, true. I was
go
thinking
play
the
it.
positives.
Go play it, buddy. Go play it, buddy.
Well, that all stems back to the golf's a game of honor, right? Like you shouldn't be doing stuff like that.
Oh, that's right.
What if you did it on accident? What if you just topped one into the water and you're like, oh, that was your ball, Frankie? Sorry, buddy. I don't know how that worked. In 1815 in Aberdeen, the opponent has the option to claim the stroke or to replace the ball within 1 yard of its original location and play it. So essentially, that seems fair. Where you're like, yeah, if you roasted it on the green to 5 feet, I'm like, yep, I'm going to play it from there. And if you top it in the water, you're like, no, I'm just going to hit it from
right.
where
That
it was.
rule was made after what happened, what we just talked about, where guys were hitting other balls into the water. They're like, we got to make a rule here where I don't have to take that shot. That's interesting.
Right. In the late 19th century was obviously all kinds of innovation, design, materials used in golf balls. The clubs changed a lot, which led to disputes about equipment, what was acceptable and what wasn't. In September 1891, the R&A formed a special committee to undertake a major revision of its code. The resulting R&A code of September 1891 was soon widely followed, and several years later, the R&A became acknowledged as the rulemaking authority. The USGA was founded in 1894, so just a few years later. 1909, the need to issue many decisions made it clear that the new governing bodies that rules of golf would need regular review and revision. 4 revised codes were issued in the first decade alone, with the 1909 code being a particularly thorough revision. Changes in that code were primarily made to incorporate elements from more than 230 decisions from the past decade. So they largely looked at it as almost like they look at law now, where it's like precedent. So they would look at rules and decisions that were made, and they would just be like, yeah, that seems like the right one. And they would basically just base it off of over 230 decisions that had been made in the last decade. In 1938, after many years of controversy that arose when some players began to use as many as 30 or more specialized clubs in one round.
Whoa.
In 1938, the USGA adopted a 14-club limit. The RNA followed suit 1 year later. So up until 1938, you had people that literally would show up with as many as 30-plus specialized clubs in their golf bag.
I mean, how specific were these clubs?
I'd love to. Yeah, is there a museum of old, like very specialized golf clubs? Now we really are doing the Mr. Borelli.
8.7 irons.
Yeah. They had to be so specific for just like the shot that a guy couldn't hit. He's like, I'm making a golf club, so it's easy.
Just
Him
like
at 4.5.
Like a short-sided bunker shot. Then you have like a normal bunker shot. Then you got like, why wouldn't you just have a shot for every single one of those, or a club?
It's a great point. It's an absolutely great
There has
point.
to be a museum filled with old specialized golf clubs like that.
And the only negative would be, I get my caddy has to carry around 37 clubs today. I don't give a fuck.
Fuck it, I don't care.
Who cares?
Not me.
I think we should bring that back. I would love to have my numbers dialed in for each swing. You know what I mean?
Again,
Like,
this feels very Mr. Borelli.
it does. It does. Like,
This
I have a
whole thing.
specific club when I'm in rough. I have a specific club when I'm in the short stuff. I have a specific club when I have a 10-foot chip.
Who knew your dad was such a historian?
Gosh.
A golf historian. Paying homage.
Also in 1938, after long debate about the fairness of the historic concept of the stymie in match play, the USGA modified the stymie rule by allowing the lifting of the ball that created the stymie if the ball was within 6 inches of the hole. The RNA made no change, and this was reconciled only in 1952 when the stymie was eliminated. So up until 1952, the stymie existed where if you were blocking your opponent's ball on the putting green, his direct line to the hole, people would just leave their ball there and be like, go fuck yourself. You have to go around it or above it.
Yep, the greatest game ever played, that happens.
The stymie was a huge strategic part of match play golf.
I was just going to say, I'm actually surprised that we got rid of that one. That one would have been amazing
Dude,
if
it was
it had
pretty
stuck
electric.
around.
You ever watch the greatest game ever played with Shia LaBeouf?
Yeah. A long time
At
ago.
one point, they like the ball's in front of him, or maybe it's in front of Varner, and he just like chips over the ball and it goes in, and everyone claps like, "Oh!"
Isn't there an old Arnold Palmer clip of him doing that? Or is it Palmer or is it?
No, yeah, because 1954, I mean, Palmer was playing before then.
They should have kept those. I think that would have added an incredible wrinkle.
Could the guy, if he was like a nice guy, just putt out in front of him? Probably, right?
I believe so. I believe that was an option.
Boy, what a fuck you if you just leave the ball there, right?
We also lost.
But I think it was commonplace to leave it there. Like, I think you would have been considered almost really uncommon if you finished up and cleared the way.
Gotcha.
We also lost a great piece of golf terminology with stymie.
Yeah, you kept saying that, and I was like, I hope he explains it once he's done, because I don't want to sound stupid, because I just didn't know what it was.
Like, imagine we could still throw the word stymie around while we're playing golf. Like, oh, you really stymied him there.
And stymie is the act of just leaving a ball in front of another ball?
Correct. An obstruction.
I'm telling you, we can pick, like, we should be like, stymie rule, we're going to play 1931.
Love it.
Yeah.
Ball and a hazard rule, we're going to play, 1744 in St. Andrews. And that should just be the way that we play certain events and matches. And the rules are the rules. Like, because why the fuck does it make any more sense for the rules to be what they are now than it did for them to be, like, what? That line's red, so I just take 2 club lengths back. Why is that more accepted than, you just tee it up and rip driver from here? Like, what?
Like 200 years from now, they're going to be looking back at us being like, can you believe that they did this? Like, it's an ever-evolving, ever-changing thing.
To the point, Trent, where there are many rules here that they implemented, and then after a year or a few years, they just changed back because they determined that it was really stupid.
Right. So within those 2 years, it would have been insane to do the opposite of that rule. But then a year later, you're going back, like the thing that you probably wanted to do, you could now do. If that makes any sense.
It does, yeah.
100%. In the 1960s, in a continued effort to find alternatives to the need to take stroke and distance relief, the 1960 USGA code adapted a distance-only penalty for balls lost or out of bounds and eliminated the provisional ball. These experiments ended a year later. So they basically then were like, yeah, we're not going to do this OB thing where you have to basically re-tee and hit a provisional. We're just going to get rid of that because that seems ridiculous for trying to speed up pace of play. And then after a year, they were like, it was a mistake, and they just went back.
All of this to say, really, you don't have to take golf that seriously. Like, when you view it through that lens where, like, everybody's like, you have to do everything so it's perfect, and if you don't do it perfectly, you're out and you shouldn't be playing this gentleman's game. This thing, it's an ever-evolving thing. Like, don't worry about it.
Also, hopefully this opens people's eyes to the fact that, like, if I don't know the rule out there, you know, I don't know the rule this month. I mean, it's got all this shit changes from day to day, it seems like, right? So when I'm on the course and I ask someone, like, yeah, like, what am I supposed to do here? Sometimes I feel like I'm being looked down upon when I say that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what I do here. Like, where do I drop? What am I line? What am I hitting? Yeah, sorry, it was different last year. It's going to be different next year. It's going to be different the year after that. It seems like it's an ever-changing, nonstop flow of rules. And if I don't know the rules, if I don't know your rules at this exact moment, I'm sorry.
Yeah. You don't have to apologize.
Yeah.
But I do really love the idea of every once in a while when we're playing, when we're shooting a video, implementing a certain era of rules and obviously making it very clear in the video what we're doing and then playing that way. I think that would be very fun.
So if you're playing like best ball with your partner, can you like putt in front of the other team and then like they just like can't get to the hole?
Right. That's a stymie is really the one that I want to do because I think that would be very fun.
Yeah, the issue, yeah. Right. I mean, I think the issue is maybe you could give them a good, like, but what if you don't want to give them, like, what if they're 3 feet in front of it and it's lurch putting? Then you're in the decision of, like, we're stymied. We could give it to them, and then we're not stymied. But if we don't give it to him, we have to figure out how to go around it or above it and hope that he just misses.
Right. Or the thing that was in my head was, like, if Lurch and I were on the green in 2 each, and you guys were on the green in 3, and we all had, we all had 10-foot putts, and I putt in front of Riggs's ball, and now I'm putting for 3 and Riggs is putting for 3. Like, I've just blocked him, and now Lurch has a putt for fucking 3. You know what I mean? Like, we've like just beaten him in that hole. We've like blocked you. You're not going to give that to me because like now we just beat you if you missed the putt. Like it's amazing.
It would also it'd be funny to see you trying to hit a perfect putt that stops just in front of my ball between the hole.
Right.
And
it's
then
almost
everyone's
more
like, why didn't you
impressive
just
than
hit that
getting
perfect putt into the hole?
Right. Do I play defense or do I play offense here? What do I do?
Far and away more impressive to putt the ball in front of the person's line because you have no idea where they're aiming. At least you have a target with a hole.
What happens in that era of rules, and you might not have it in front of you, if Frankie hits my ball? Is it played as it lies?
He gets executed on the spot.
Definitely.
Dude, if it starts becoming like I can knock your ball, and I'm just aiming for your ball and knock it off the green.
That might be the one. It's chaos.
Then it's just like croquet, right? Isn't
that
what we're
just playing? Chaos.
Yeah.
Right.
This is very interesting.
Since 1984, the volume of inquiries about the rules of golf has continued to be very high. The 4-year revision cycle has resulted in a substantial number of changes that everyone's kind of aware of now. And they go on and on about how there's all kinds of different, revisions each year, kind of to it basically gets up to speed now where we've been paying attention. And, you've had the anchored ban. You had in 2008 the definition of prohibited advice was revised to exclude information on distance so that players would be allowed to share distance information with each other or obtain it from others without penalty. So it used to be you couldn't obtain any information about distance from other players, whereas now you could. And that was only changed in 2008. So again, they just fucking change shit all the time. And, to go all the way back from like how ridiculous the rules were back in the day where different places played different rules for dropping golf balls and all that, they've had to tweak them so much now. They include like the difference between video evidence and not, and how you can't, something has to be visible to the naked eye and not based on HD slow motion replay. So the rules of golf has changed a lot. We're going to quickly, before we finish up this, speaking of TV, Sling TV. If you love watching live TV, but you're tired of the high prices, Trust me, it's time to take care of your TV experience. It's time for you to get Sling. Sling is the place where your favorite channels like NFL Red Zone, ESPN, MTV, and much more all come together. The cheapest way to watch Golf Channel all year long. That's true. Sling TV is literally the cheapest option for you to be able to watch Golf Channel. We've got our exclusive channel for Barstool content for free on the Barstool Sports channel on Sling. You could watch, obviously, our podcast episodes. You can watch Four Man Scramble. You can watch Breaking 100 and much more on Sling TV. So sign up now. Get your first month for just $10. Their contract's starting at just $35 a month. But if you sign up now and get your first month, it's just $10. Whatever you're into, Sling is where you can find live TV and sports that you all love. Go to sling.com/barstool. Sign up now. Get your first month starting at just $10. Again, that's sling.com/barstool. First month for just $10. We love Sling TV, gentlemen.
We do love Sling TV.
Yeah,
Barstool Sports channel that just runs a bunch of Barstool content. It's very cool.
Just all the time. I do have to say, Rory McIlroy just can't. I just saw a statement from him, so we couldn't do this whole show in our discussion on distance and not mention it. Rory said today, I was in all those meetings when we discussed the distance and the length of the drivers and shafts. I was in all those meetings when we discussed it for quite a while, and I think the majority of players are on board with it.
A different take.
Which is a different take. I would say it's not him saying almost every single player is on board with it. The majority of players, because, right, we've had two prominent players, Phil Mickelson and Justin Thomas, both basically were extremely against it in terms of their statements. Rory says the majority of players were on board with it, so it sounds like we got a little bit of back and forth coming between the players.
Is he saying that the majority of the players who were in those discussions were on board with it? Because that's pretty clear. Or is he saying he has run an unofficial poll with people that he knows, golfers that he knows, and they are on board with it?
I think he's saying the majority of just golf players that are professionals are on board with it.
Okay. I don't know if he's right about that. But he's Rory McIlroy.
I don't know if he's right about that either.
Of course he was in the room. Him being like, I was in the room. So, yeah. I don't know. I think he's wrong.
Well, he's on that player advisory thing, right?
Right.
He's like, but that'd be interesting that he then would be, because if Phil's saying there was no, like, if Phil was saying players weren't involved, and then Rory's saying I was in all those meetings and we discussed it for quite a while, I think the majority of players are. I guess there's a difference. I think Rory was in the talks with like PGA Tour crew about it and adopting it, but that had nothing technically to do with the USGA and RNA making the decision to do it, which is very different. But we're a show that likes to get information correctly, so we got all that information
all the time.
You're welcome for doing that. We never ever are wrong. That kind of ends our history lesson on the rules of golf. But I do think that the big takeaway from this should be that we should, on maybe a handful of rules in each of our rounds, we should just use really old school adaptations of rules for certain instances.
I like it a lot.
Yep. I'm on board with that for sure.
And I kind of disagree with Trent. I think we should not make it that clear to people so that people on the internet freak out at our
I enjoy that.
different interpretation of the rules.
I'm on board with that too.
From the gallery. We haven't done From the Gallery in a long time.
Well, real quick, before we get into that, did you guys see Bryson was on the Nelk Boys podcast? I think it's called Full Send.
No.
So he goes on this podcast. They're massive right now. Nelk Boys are huge. They moan in people's ears. I find it funny. I mean, a lot of the things they do are probably really cringy on the internet, but when they moan in people's ears on the golf course, it's pretty fucking funny. But they have this massive podcast. They're getting crazy fucking numbers. And Bryson goes on it. It was a huge thing for him because, like, Bryson, is back in the limelight.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to say something stupid? And he was classic Bryson, like answering things like a nerd, but he was very self-deprecating where he's like, I am a nerd. I'm the science guy. He talked about playing with Tiger Woods, how Tiger's a huge nerd too. Like there's a quote there where he was just like, yeah, Tiger's just as big of a nerd as I am. We talked about putting deeper than anyone's ever talked about putting. Like if you think about putting and how deep you can go, Tiger goes deeper about putting, which was a funny quote.
Okay.
So I'm reading this golf.com article.
I bet Tiger goes deeper,
Oh, he definitely goes deeper.
Hell yeah, brother.
Holes a hole.
Based on all the evidence, it's
Hole's a hole, baby. Nick Piastowski
Okay.
basically broke down a lot of Bryson's quotes, but there was this one thing that really stuck out to me. Basically, he's talking about how he was missing putts from such a short range, and he didn't understand why. It was a malfunction in his hardware, in his computer system. So he says, so I did some study and some research on the golf ball and geometry of the dimples. And so this is getting a bit technical. So the dimples, and you can even hear the way he says it, right? And so this is getting a bit technical. So the dimples, they have edges on them, right? And if you hit the dimple on the edge at the wrong angle, it can come off horizontally or vertically. So he says, so if you hit it at this angle, it will twist off and go online. But if you're hitting on the top or the bottom of the dimple, it will only affect the vertical launch. So when I was putting, I was missing putts from super close ranges because I was hitting it off the other edges of the dimples. Now this sounds insane, but it kind of makes sense. And like, I don't know that anyone's ever looked at the golf ball this closely and realized, like, when you are putting, that the dimples on the golf ball, if you're not hitting them perfectly on the flat part of the dimple, it goes left and right. I mean, dude, it makes sense.
Can you fucking believe this guy, Rick?
A lot of these guys who miss short putts, they're like, I felt like I made a really good stroke, but it comes out and it lips out of the hole, or from a foot or two. It's because they're hitting the edges of the dimples. They're not looking close enough at the ball. The firmer you hit it, the more the golf ball compresses. So when you're hitting something a lot harder, it compresses it and doesn't come off at a weird angle. When you're hitting it softer, like a 5-footer or a 3-footer, you hit it a little bit off the edges. It can now come offline. So he says you only see this when you're on the really, really short putts.
You're really trying to sell us that you're a Bryson stan these days.
I'm not a Bryson stan. I just think
Are
that's a
you
really
sure?
interesting thing to.
You're the same guy who went in his neck a couple years ago when he sprayed
Because
water
that's
on
fake.
the ball.
That's fake. He was simulating rain by spraying water on a golf ball. This is like.
How is that any different?
How is that any different?
What do you mean, how is that different? This is literally just like facts. Like, he's saying that if you hit the ball on the edge of a dimple, it's going to go sideways. I was saying that.
How is your golf ball being wet on the range and then also being wet on the course and trying to simulate that? Not the exact same thing.
Because it's not the same thing as rain. It's just spraying water on a golf ball.
But it's water.
But we all agreed that it like didn't simulate at all. It was insane that he was hitting that in a perfectly clear day. The ball was going through just non-rain air. He was spraying it on the ground. People even like debunked that it even made any sense. This is just like what he does when he putts. This is a factual thing. That every time he putts, he just does this. Like, he does hit the ball on the edge of a dimple and it goes sideways. That's my point. It's like, it's actually a thing that we all can do.
We're
not going to go on a fucking.
When a golf club strikes a golf ball, and understanding how that impact is changed when the golf ball is wet is almost identical to understanding the differences between how a golf ball reacts when you strike a dimple on the side of it and not on the side of it.
Right, I think they're both viable.
He's not testing out like what it's gonna. He literally just putts on the middle of the dimple. Is my point. Like, that's just like if you line up a putt with the line on it. Like, this is something that I thought was interesting that we all could actually try and do. We're not going to go out and soak our balls in water.
I might.
See how,
I might
no, you
now.
won't. This is not anything similar in the way that he was trying to break our minds on how the ball will fly through the air because it had morning dew on it. This is something that I just thought we all could literally just try and do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, line up the dimple to your putt. Does it not make sense?
No, it does make sense. I just think it is very similar to the morning dew.
But it's not. It's not similar because this is just something he's doing. He's not testing out any theories. This is just the way he putts.
But he did have to test it at one point. He was like, I wonder if this is going to make a difference.
Yeah, but the same way, like, you test, like, I don't know how high you tee up a ball. I don't know. It's just like what he does.
Right?
What do you mean it like line it up on the dimple? Like, what do you mean? Like, what is
covered
that
in
mean?
dimples.
You know exactly where you're gonna strike the ball with that big putter face on
know,
this
that's
golf
why
ball? How is that like significantly more defendable than the water thing?
It is more defendable.
Which
he has
dimple
a
you
spot-
hit, Frank? Huh? Which dimple?
Well, what if you put a mark on it?
You're gonna be able to strike that particular.
But if you aim for
not
it,
even which dimple, you're gonna be able to strike the middle and not the edge of one of these on purpose.
It's an aiming point.
It's not an aiming point. He's saying you have to strike it not on the edge, otherwise it won't come off the same way. You're gonna do that. You're gonna strike it right in the middle of one of these and not on the edge of it with the putter face. What?
Yes.
I mean, come on.
I really appreciate your commitment to becoming a Bryson DeChambeau fan.
That's not me being a fan. I'm just saying that he looked at something that I wouldn't even think to look at on the putting stroke. No, that's not the same.
I hadn't thought of putting morning dew on my golf balls either when I hit him at the range. Oh, make sure you hit the right dimple.
There you go.
Which dimple are you hitting with this thing? All right, you got these two different things, okay? And this thing on this gray thing and this white thing, this gray thing is going to strike the white thing inside of one of those dimples only.
You're telling me you're not going to look at dimples now when you putt a 1 foot putt?
No.
Oh, you're crazy. You're crazy. You're crazy. You're not going to try this out.
No.
Riggs Barstool's not going to try this out.
I don't even know how you try it.
Try it out.
Right. I don't
listen to the podcast. I'm just reading quotes.
You don't see any similarities here.
My point is, like, this is, like, to me, and obviously when you show me the ball, it's super, I mean, it's obviously probably impossible for a regular person to do it.
Frank.
Right, I'm saying, like, now that I'm looking at one, it's probably impossible for us to do it. My point was when I'm reading the quote, it's like, I thought it was actually pretty interesting. I guess I was forgetting how small dimples are, but, like, if we were able to, like, try and hit the middle of dimples, I could see why it would go sideways. Like it does make sense why if you hit like the edge of one, I guess it would. Like if you looked at a slow motion shot of a putting stroke and you hit the edge of the ball of the dimple, it would go more sideways than you thought.
It seems almost impossible to consistently hit
I
the
agree,
center
actually.
of a dimple.
I do agree. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he does it.
I don't know how he does it either.
It's amazing.
Oh, he's going to be on the tour. That's super. That's cute.
90 minutes in, baby.
Well, Happy Gilmore, 90 minutes. Very nice. Very nice. Shoot him again.
How does he do it?
I will say this. I've always noticed that Tiger seems to ram his short putts in, like really short ones. Like they hit the back of the hole, and I almost think, like, God, did he hit that too hard? So maybe he's onto the dimple thing too, and maybe he and Tiger. I'm not sure.
There we
but
go.
I
Maybe
just
that
know-
was the most important part. So the firmer you hit it, the more the golf ball compresses. So when you're hitting something a lot harder, it's compressing it and doesn't come off at a weird angle. When you're hitting it softer, like a 5-footer or a 3-footer, you hit it a little bit off the edges. It can now come off line.
I'm not necessarily doubting.
Maybe he's
that
not-
it
maybe
may
he's
be
not
true or
aiming
not
for
true.
the
What I'm saying is that you a few minutes ago were defending that you're going to line up your ball based on one of these dimples, and that you're going to strike it not on the side of one of these dimples.
No,
That was way less crazy than spritzing your golf ball so you could simulate dew on a golf ball.
No, so really, at the end of the day, I just hadn't read out loud most of the quote. I don't think he's lining up the dimples to his putts. I think mainly what he was saying was that the slower the stroke, especially from the 1 or 2 feet, that when you do hit it off the edges of these dimples, which I guess you can't actually try and not do, that the ball is going to spin left and right and based off of not based off of what you thought the stroke actually did. You know what I'm saying?
So hit it harder.
So he's saying he hits them harder, and that greatly increased his putting around 1 and 2 feet.
It lessens the chance of hitting one of the edges.
Correct.
Yeah.
The amazing part about this is you were all in on something earlier that he wasn't even doing, which was lining
Well,
up
you
a
guys
golf ball
jumped
by the
down my
dimple.
throat. I was still fucking reading it. Like, you jumped down my throat. You grabbed the putter. Oh, great thing. To hit this white thing. I said, yeah, I guess that's what he's fucking doing.
I just
and
know
I'm going
that-
to go and try it.
That 2017 Frankie would listen to 2021 Frankie on Bryson and be like, what happened? What the hell happened?
Bro,
And
but
I have to
I
agree
don't
with
think
that. I have
that but we talk about shit like this all the time. Like, we just had a fucking hour-long podcast with Carlton about, like, the weirdest shit you could possibly do to make your game better. I thought that this was, like, something we could all go out and try and do. It's like try and jam in putts now.
The bottom line
I didn't
is
think that was anything
this-
like as weird as spraying a fucking water bottle on your golf ball. That was the
But it
weirdest
is
thing we'd ever seen.
because what he just described, Frankie, he just said if you hit your short putts a little bit firmer, they're less likely to like bounce off line for different reasons. That's basically what he said. Like it's less likely to come off like that. And I think that prior Frankie would have been like, look at this asshole describing like something way more technical than he needs to describe it. Of like, yeah, I learned that if I just hit my short putts a little bit harder, I make more of them. That's what he's saying.
Instead, he's saying
No,
like,
but he-
I don't want to catch the edge of a dimple.
No, I think the revelation that like we are hitting the edges of the dimple, it's not a perfectly round ball, actually like blew my mind. That part really stuck out to me, where it's like, yeah, we are like, when you are striking it could go offline because of the way a golf ball is shaped.
But I think like another example of him with the coefficient of restitution of a flag stick, he was saying like, yeah, if you hit a flag stick square on and the ball's going a little too hard, the flag stick might help you. And everyone's like, yeah, no shit. We've seen that for the history of time. And I think we jumped down his throat for things over the last years because he's done this dozens of different times with stuff. When in reality, what he's saying is like, I learned if I just hit my short putts a little bit more firm, they go in more often.
Right, he is.
He also didn't use a ridiculous term for this. He just said, like, I hit my balls a little bit harder.
He's talking about the edge of dimples that he studied.
But that's like literally what is on the golf ball. It's the name of the name of what the thing on the golf ball is. It's an edge of the dimple. Like,
I guess
he like made up like some mathematical term for what he was doing with the flag stick. That's why I jumped down his throat. This is just what a golf ball is. It has edges on a golf ball.
I guess what we're saying is,
he can't describe it any other way.
I guess. Well, he could say I hit my putts harder.
Yeah, but like if someone says why, if someone says why, he's like, oh, actually the ball has all these edges on them, and if you hit them really short, if you hit them really slow, that the edges actually affect the ball more than people think. That's literally what he said word for word. I don't think it's that crazy. I don't think it's, you guys are jumping down my throat like I used to jump down his throat, but this is so much more normal than he used to be, I thought. He's talking with the Nelk boys about how the ball spins.
No, I think it's very much in line with the Bryson that we've known.
I think you guys are wrong. I think you jumped down my throat a little too hard. I think this is super simple. He's just saying, like, they asked him, why'd you get so good at putting? He said, oh, there was this thing that I figured out that, like, I was hitting him way too slow from a short distance, and actually the way the ball is shaped, it's got these edges on it.
But then you said that he is mapping out which dimple he wants to hit.
No, I didn't get to read long enough. Once you jumped on my back, I was trying to defend the guy because I knew that it was a fucking good point.
I'm sorry that we thought you had all the information for your argument.
We now have all the information, so what do you think?
I still think it's a very Bryson thing to say.
That's weird. That's weird.
I can't.
It's not the coefficient of restitution.
Every other golfer
to describe something.
Every other golfer would just say, they would ask, what did you do?
This is literally Alfonso Ribeiro saying like your knuckles need to like lead the chip, and our minds are blown.
No,
like,
but I think if you ask any other
knuckles, golfer, I didn't think about that. I'm gonna go golfing 1,000 times to try it.
If you ask any other golfer and they say, how did you improve your shorter putts? They would just say, I hit them a little bit more firm.
Okay, but that is what he said.
And then it's a very Bryson thing to then say, and actually, the dimples have these little edges on them, and if you don't hit them in the right way, it will skew your putt offline. And I get that that's true.
I think that's super, super normal thing to say. I think coefficient of restitution of the flag stick is an asshole thing to say. I think when they say, why does the ball go left and right from 1 feet? And he goes, oh, because the ball is actually not perfectly round. It has edges on it. So the slower you hit the ball, the more it's going to affect it, is a completely normal thing to say. Like if someone said that to us on a podcast, we'd be like, holy fuck.
We think it's identical.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's Bryson, instead of explaining something like
But that's the point you guys are missing. I think that's the only way he could have explained it.
He's explaining it way too in depth because he's Mr. I know more than you guy, which is the same thing you've always been upset about.
Right.
I think that was the only way he could have explained it.
Not just say
when
I hit him harder.
Someone asked why the ball goes left and right. I don't know how else is he supposed to explain that?
I thought the answer would stop at him being like, yeah, I hit it firmer, and it hits more center of the ball.
Or what I would say is that's fine that he explained it that way, but you haven't always been fine with him explaining it that way.
But I see a major difference as when he was literally coming up with math equations and names and acting like he was changing the game of golf based off of the coefficient of restitution of the flag stick and saying like, this is the way we need to do it. This is why I'm going to be keeping the fucking pin in the hole, and like this is why everyone should be following the way I'm doing it. To me, I thought that was much different than him someone asking him, why does the ball go left? It's like it's just a fact as to why the ball went left and right.
But Frankie, it's the same exact thing that he was saying with the flag stick, where they were saying, hey, Bryson, how are you going to handle this new rule where you're allowed to leave the flag stick in? And his answer was, based on the stuff I've done, depending on certain flags, I'm going to leave them in most of the time. Oh, why are you going to leave them in most of the time? Then he's like, well, since you asked, it's the coefficient of the restitution based on the study that I've done. It's very, very much the exact same thing as saying, hey, Bryson, how come your short putt range has increased so much in terms of your success in making it over the last few years? Him saying, well, I hit him harder. Oh, why'd you decide to hit him harder? Well, because I studied the edges of the dimples of the golf ball. It's identical to the other thing with the coefficient of restitution of the flag stick.
I don't know. I just think because there are edges on a golf ball and that's something that we know that they have dimples on them, to me it sounds a lot more just that's just what happens to the golf ball, as opposed to like him sitting us down for a history lesson on what happens to flag sticks and teaching us new words and terminologies about it. To me, that came off a lot more douchebaggery back when we were jumping down Bryson's throat. For this, I was like, oh yeah, I know what dimples on a golf ball are, and I've actually never thought that way. It's pretty interesting. I've never thought about it that way. That's the only reason why I see it differently. I don't want to keep defending this. This is a weird 20 minutes I have to fucking back my back against the wall.
I would also say the thing that makes it
You're
Bryson.
angry.
I would also say the thing that you're angry. I would also say the thing that makes it Bryson
I'm
is
not
that
angry. I'm just trying to talk about how it's fucking interesting.
Okay. And I would also say that what makes it very Bryson is that he's describing something that I don't even know if he has control over. Like he's saying, like, do we actually think he knows where he's going to hit on the dimple?
I've already said that that's not what he said. For the last 10 minutes, he does not aim for the dimples.
Then why even explain it that way? Because he was
saying he was trying to figure out why he missed so many short putts.
But if you're saying that
it was because he was swinging too slow,
and it would hit a different part of a dimple.
Well, when you swing slower, because there are edges on a golf ball, it just goes left and right. So the harder and firmer you hit it, the less that gets impacted.
Let me go a little deeper. I did a little research. He said, so if you hit it at this angle, it will twist and go offline. But if you're hitting on the top or bottom of the dimple, it will only affect the vertical launch. So when I was putting, I was missing putts from super close ranges because I was hitting off the other edges of the dimples. You're telling me because the vertical launch of a dimple is somehow more simple and less douchey than what we got upset about him before with coefficient of restitution? We're talking about a dimple on a golf
I'd also
ball.
say that in that quote, he is saying that he knows what parts of the dimples to hit. And that seems...
No, he's not. He's not aiming for dimples. Because you're just missing. You're not reading the quote that I read. That sounds super normal. The firmer you hit it, I already
read that because you said that to me. I read that.
Right. The firmer you hit it, the more the golf ball compresses. When you're hitting something a lot harder, that it compresses. It's compressing. And it doesn't come off at a weird angle.
So why do we have to get the vertical launch thing? Why do you put that in there?
Well, that's him being him. All I'm saying is that
exactly.
This idea to me was more interesting than anything else he had said. I don't know. I just thought that this was interesting. I'm sorry. I apologize. I really do. I apologize for thinking that this was a cool quote.
We accept your apology.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
You're a Bryson guy nowadays. That's what I'm getting, and I think that's great.
Yeah. Yes, I am. I am a Bryson guy. I think that he's completely turned on a new chapter.
I think in Riggs, we all talked about it on this podcast, being like, things are gonna happen post this Ryder Cup. I know we all love him right now because he's hitting the green in one.
No. That's not this. I know what you're gonna say. That's not this.
I think it is.
I think if 2018 Bryson says the exact same words, I think Frankie Borelli is furious. That's my opinion.
Know what else to tell you.
I like it though. It's growth.
I don't know what else to tell you guys because I wasn't forced to read that quote. It literally, I saw it when I was just on the internet today, and I thought it was super interesting. Like genuinely, the reason why I brought it up. There was no like storyline for me being a Bryson guy. I thought that you guys would find that interesting. I didn't think that we would get into a coefficient restitution flag stick debate like that. My point for bringing that up is because I'm not trying to fall in line with just being a Bryson guy by saying that. I just thought, I don't know.
We accept your apology.
It feels like Bryson being Bryson to me.
Bryson being Bryson like doesn't go on the Nelk Boy podcast and talk about like Tiger Woods being a nerd. Like he's just he's like more likable now. Like I don't know.
I want that to be true.
You guys don't want it to be true.
Don't think it's true, but I wish it were.
So this Bryson's not different than the 2018 Bryson.
No.
Wow, that's nuts. It's crazy how fast you turn after the Ryder Cup.
No,
he went on.
We'd even said it.
Since the Ryder Cup, he's literally went to a long drive contest, was awesome, hasn't given out a bad quote yet, and then went on the Nelk Boys fucking podcast and talk. But that's a bad quote.
It's a Bryson quote. Certainly.
I guess our point is that because of the Ryder Cup, you look at that quote differently. Whereas we're saying in a vacuum, if you remove the Ryder Cup, that is identical to what he's always said.
Right, and we figured there'd be a honeymoon phase where it's like, oh, people like this guy now because he's, performing at the Ryder Cup and hitting the green on one and making eagle. But we figured that at some point he would say Bryson things.
All right.
It's nice
automatic
to have a
ball
Bryson
return.
defender on the
Only
pod.
one golf ball needed to practice. You can set up the automatic ball return golf net, which is one of the coolest things we've ever used. The net return, as it's called. Set up in 5 minutes or less, highly portable and no directions needed. Handles ball speeds of over 225 miles per hour. And again, it has a 250,000 shot guarantee. I do think we saw quite a few tweets from folks who were like, to hit 250,000 shots, you have to hit an unimaginable amount of golf shots.
Right. I remember we tried to break the numbers down on this show, and we're just not even close. So the net return, it's probably going to outlast all of us, I would imagine.
It's the best net you can. You could fire a 200-mile-an-hour baseball at this thing and it'll just drop.
The videos are crazy that you've sent me, Frankie, when you're in the backyard, and it just doesn't go anywhere. I've never seen anything like it. It seems like it goes against physics.
The ball does not move.
It is used by our very good friend Bryson DeChambeau. It's even put in the ad copy. So clearly he's done his scientific experiments on it. It's used by many other LPGA and PGA Tour pros. The only golf net in the world that automatically returns the ball back to you. Multi-sport net can also be used for soccer, lacrosse, baseball, even hockey, which we're not a hockey podcast, but if we were, we would probably use this net, the net return, for shooting pucks, working on your shot. You can visit thenetreturn.com or follow the net return on Instagram at thenetreturn. To get your balls back, head on over to thenetreturn.com. Follow them on Instagram at thenetreturn. It's the only net that you will ever need. You can fire something in it again. 225 miles an hour, 250,000 shot guarantees. You could probably even hit way more than that. Takes 5 minutes or less to set up. Things awesome. Go to thenetreturn.com. How we feeling, gentlemen? Good?
Feel good.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be on the right side of history with this guy.
Maybe.
I like that we have a Bryson guy on the show now.
I'm not even a Bryson guy. I think that he deserves our, you're allowed to change. You're allowed to, win people over. He won people over at the Ryder Cup. How insane is it to just be like, oh, yeah, you're the same person in 2018. I hate you because of the stuff that you did in 2018. He literally just won us over at the Ryder Cup. We were huge fans.
But the things that and we don't have to harp on it, but the things that he did at the Ryder Cup seemed out of character in a way that we did like him, and then he now is just doing the things that he was doing before. I think it's crazy to think that somebody's he hasn't changed that much. He hasn't changed.
Which should show us that we were hard on him for the first couple of years, I think.
I think Riggs is right when he says that your perception of him has changed. And that's totally
we
fine.
Said that at the Ryder Cup.
We said that we thought he was going to go back to his old ways.
You said that your perception of him changed at the Ryder Cup.
I did, but I also was aware of myself knowing that I think he's probably going to do something that's going to piss me.
That's a whole nother conversation. If your perception changed of him at the Ryder Cup, mine did as well. I'm just not going back to what I previously thought before my perception changed. I think that's insane.
It just felt like a honeymoon period. It felt like we went away for a boys' weekend.
Bro,
and now we're back to reality.
We ran to the tee box to watch Bryson DeChambeau tee off on the first.
I like watching him hit golf balls.
We sprinted there like little children.
Yeah,
when he hit the ball, we fucking high-fived and went nuts.
I like watching him hit
golf balls. It was awesome. I don't disagree with that at all. I think we were just trying to make the point there in real time that Bryson's still going to be Bryson. You're going to look at things differently for however long that may be, a honeymoon phase as you will. But at the end of the day, the same reasons that we may have been hard on him before, I think will be the same reasons going forward that we'll be hard on him again. This seems like an example of that. If you're still in the honeymoon phase, that's totally fine. I just think that you weren't really admitting that the reason you saw this differently was because of the Ryder Cup. You were saying, isn't he so much cooler? He went on the Nelk Boys. Well, he went on Foreplay a couple years ago too. We thought he was really cool for that. And then eventually that wore off, and we think it'll wear off again. That's all we're saying.
Yeah, and I'm being completely honest with you guys. When I saw that quote pop up of how he's looking at the dimple, I didn't think of him being Bryson, and so maybe it's just subconscious now that I don't think of him as the old Bryson. But when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, a lot of people miss 2-foot putts, and we like to sometimes bring up these things that people can fucking think about. I didn't read through the whole thing, so I was when we got to the point where it's oh, you just have to strike the ball a little bit harder, I thought that would be something cool to bring up on the podcast. Everyone else now can try and just strike the ball a little bit harder from 1 or 2 foot putts. Bryson's stats went up from 89% makes to 99% makes because he saw this difference. I thought it was interesting. I genuinely didn't think of it as oh, I'm a huge Bryson guy now. Every quote he comes out with on the Nelk Boys, I'm just going to suck his dick. And that's me being completely honest. I didn't think of it that way. So
I don't think that you did either. I think that saying what you just said and bringing it up and giving a platform to our audience about that interesting fact that Bryson now hits his putts harder is a good thing. I think it's interesting. It's great. We're just saying we think you would have seen it and had a different take prior to the Ryder Cup.
Maybe it's subconscious because maybe.
It could be.
Because I didn't bring it up to pump his tires is my point. Like,
I believe you.
I don't want every time I bring up a Bryson thing now it's because like I want everyone to love the guy. That's not I couldn't care less what happens to Bryson DeChambeau.
That's good.
Like, you know what I mean?
That seems really nice.
I'm not buying the guy's jersey. I don't know.
The dimple example is just a very interesting one to bring up, given our history with him.
I guess so. But like we all miss 1 and 2 footers, and like I just thought that was interesting. I don't know. Like it didn't seem like a math equation. It didn't seem like something that I couldn't try myself.
Listen,
is my point. Like
I'm gonna hit my 2-foot putts harder now.
It just didn't seem like something that like I needed to like learn a lesson about. Like it was just like, oh yeah, maybe we should hit it a little bit further. Obviously, when you read the quote and you go word for word, it's like, wow, it's a lot. It's a lot. And I'm sure I would.
That's what we've always done. Is the argument? We've always done that. We've always been like, man, we're never just going to discuss the surface level of what Bryson said. Like we usually dig into why he used all these different terminologies and did he need to. That's our only point. We don't need to keep harping on. I'm sure people are sick of it.
For sure.
We accept your apology, so thank you for doing that. I think that's pretty much all that we got at this point. It's
been a rough day.
No, we're rooting for your success, your speedy recovery. I hope that this wasn't a big setback. I think you're going to be fine.
Do you want to say something mean before we leave?
No, I don't.
You can if you want.
We'll let you.
No.
You can have the last word. We'll give you the last word.
No, I'm done, dude.
Yeah, you get the last word. This is the last thing I'm going to say.
Hit it hard. Frankie, you have the floor.
They're saying the Big Bang wasn't actually the start of the universe, according to new studies. It's a fucking... Chaps just blogged it an hour ago. So now it's a whole nother thing I got to deal with tonight. Whole nother fucking thing I got to deal with. Surprise, the Big Bang isn't the beginning of the universe anymore. You can't do that. The Big Bang teaches us that our expanding, cooling universe used to be younger, denser, and hotter in the past. However, extrapolating all the way back to singularity leads to predictions that disagree with what we observe. Instead, cosmic inflation preceded and set up the Big Bang, changing our cosmic origin story forever. Hit it hard. Fuck that.